Today, we are speaking with Wynne Thornley, an esoteric guide from Alberta, Canada, who shares how she normalises the paranormal world around us through her haunted field trips and expanding your psychic abilities in ways that you never thought possible. Wynne shares paranormal encounters, including the spirit who said, "I'm sorry," and the elusive Hat Man. So let's get into our interview with Wynne. So thank you for joining us today, Wynne.
Well, thank you for reaching out. I'm so happy to be here with you today, Anna.
Oh, look, I've listened to your podcast many, many times, and it's nice to connect with other paranormal podcasters. And I really like what you do because you take a different approach to the way that most paranormal people work when it comes to working with spirits and some of the other entities around us. So would you like to share with us who you are, what you do, how you got into the paranormal?
So my name is Wynne Thornley. I am a Alberta girl, so I'm from Canada, and I've lived in central Alberta most of my life. What I like to do in the world of the paranormal is I'm all about demystification and education. I also do have a private clientele that I do see, but when I work with them, early in my career, I got over just talking to loved ones and I expanded out into more soul work and mentorship and connecting one back with, heavens and earth, right? Because we all have these abilities. And that's what I found by getting into this professionally is, oh, wait, it's not actually just gifted people. We're all gifted if we learn how to use our gifts, right? So how this all started, I was one of those people that can't remember not having paranormal experiences. I had a mentor tell me once that my light shines so bright and I could see so much that society, my parents had no choice but to turn it off. I went through mental illness diagnosis that turned out to be nothing at the end of the day. And I talk about that on my podcast a little bit and some other stuff, but where I became passionate was I was just trying to understand what was happening to me when I was a kid. I was trying to understand why is the world so loud and sharp for me? Why do I have these experiences when nobody else is having it? And I started to find out what was really happening. In the beginning, I started to watch those ghost hunter shows,
Yep.
like in around my self-discovery is when like Paranormal State was out and then Ghost Hunters and it breeds for far beyond that.
Yep.
But something didn't feel right. It felt really Hollywood. And I didn't think, oh, I don't have those gifts like that. Well, it turned out I did. I had a mediumship experience where I was picked out of a crowd and they basically said, you need to get off some medication. You're gifted. You need those gifts to wake back up again. And it was, again, shortly after that, all of a sudden courses started to be put in front of my face that made sense. I learned how to control my energy. And that's where the passion lies, is everybody has this ability. With a little bit of education, you can demystify most paranormal stuff. And I didn't see that happening in the industry. So like everybody else, we start in a certain path, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like, but
Yep.
that doesn't make sense. But I don't really care for how they're doing that. And I'm not experiencing it the same way.
Yes.
So that's why I continue. That's why I've changed the way I interact with the paranormal. I changed the way I teach it. I even changed the way I teach things like Reiki and stuff. This is not weekend warrior stuff. This is lifestyle stuff.
It's interesting how we challenge people, isn't it? When we do the paranormal thing a different way than is
Mm,
seen through society as being acceptable, because it's kind of acceptable, but it's not acceptable. But it's acceptable if you do it the way everybody else does.
yes. And I couldn't agree more with that, right? And I've been somebody who's always rubbed people the wrong way. And even though, especially if I'm just being myself, and I have found a lot of shade in the business as well due to my, but tell me more about that. Explain to me that a little bit differently. Like I want to know why you're teaching what you're teaching and where
Yep.
did you learn it? And when those answers can't come, these people get really triggered. it's it's like, well, I'm just asking questions. So that's something that I definitely let bleed into all of my any educational experience I offer is you better be challenging me too. Because guess what? I don't know everything either. And I have found some students have helped shift my perspective just with their questioning, because then I had to question what I learned and why I believed what I believed. Right. I
Yep.
used to have this strong feeling about angels. They are these beings. And I had this one student question me. She's like, I just can't get on it. I just can't get on that bandwagon. I feel like it's energetic spheres. And I was like, whoa, like it changed my complete perspective where I played in that energy a little bit. What if they aren't this being that's outside of us that comes to us and it's a sphere within us that radiates out? Ooh, I like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important. And if anything we've learned in our paranormal experiences is that they're subjective. But when information changes, we have to run with the change, just like science. You know what I mean? Like it's not tangible, but we can make it tangible if we continue to look at it under a microscope and allow it to change, allow our viewpoints to change, and try something new.
That's it. And it's how tangible you actually want to make it. Because I
Yes.
find it's very tangible. And when I've worked with a lot of my clients who are now becoming more aware because they're not so frightened, they're not so scared of the paranormal anymore.
Mhm.
And I picked up a house clearing job the other day from a friend who went to a friend's home and went, I don't know what's going on in that room. And she said, I don't know why I'm always angry in that room. It's her son's bedroom and it's always messy. I mean, his little kids are messy sometimes, but the mum goes in there and she's always angry. And she said her whole personality changes in that particular room. And my friend went, I think you need to see Anna. So I've just finished that job and it was interesting because it was an old schoolhouse and the headmaster was still there. And the mum would
Mm,
hear shh, shh all the time. Give the house a week. I talk to the clients, see how they're going. Things have changed. What's changed? And the husband's very skeptical. And the wife didn't tell him she was having the house cleared.
yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if he notices. And getting on to skeptics, how do you handle skeptics? I find them
Mm.
interesting and I find them a challenge, but I actually enjoy working with them.
I also enjoy working with them because, again, challenge me on my beliefs. And I'll tell you where this information comes from. I'll tell you why I'm connected into it and how I see the proof in my life.
Yep.
And, and I'm happy to have the conversation because they do make me think in a different way, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
okay to be challenged. And then it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, I end up saying, hey, it's okay with whatever you believe in, man. I believe in this stuff, you believe in that stuff, but next time we want to have a conversation, like I'm approachable.
Yeah. And I always find that sometimes skeptics, they aren't ready. They aren't ready to understand it,
Mm.
or they've got family beliefs or religious beliefs, or they
Yes, that
just
prevents them.
don't want it to be part of their reality because it means they have to manage something else in their lives and they've already got their plates are already full up to here and they just can't cope with thinking about anything else.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you're taking like people who think very analytically and logically, it's very difficult for them to live in a mystical, magical world where anything is possible because they need the reason why.
Yeah.
And spirit doesn't always have that reason why. It just has to be, to experience, to witness, right? So
Yeah,
to
that's
question
it.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've worked on clients' homes who are totally skeptical and they're like, there's change. It's good change. I'm still not a believer. I'm going to sit on the fence. And I'm like, that is totally okay. Because if I've helped them and made an improvement in their life, that's what the job's about. It's not about them going, I believe you and paranormal's real. If you've made that change, just go with it. Just go with that
That's what I
flow.
say. That's right. Because it's not up to me to decide when people wake up or when people have these moments of shifting of saying maybe there is something out there. I had one client, I had one skeptic that hired me. The house was for sale for 3 years, right?
Yep.
But and the job in Australia, they actually moved to Australia, and
Yep.
the job it wasn't waiting for him anymore, right? So they had to get going, and hired in a cleanser. He said that he thought I painted his walls. That's how he, because he's like, it's so much brighter in here. So did you mean by cleaning, like you came in and painted the walls? Is that what you mean? And I'm like, if that's how you need to see it, sure. Energetic painting, but yes, right? Because that's how he could explain it to himself. Oh, well, she must have meant something different. She came in and washed my walls or painted my walls, right?
Yeah, I always say to people, you can paint the walls, you can remove the carpet, you can add new furniture, but you have to have an energetic spring clean of your home every now and again. It has to be
Yes.
energetically done if you choose
Yes.
to, but it makes a huge difference. Now, I'm interested in what was your first major paranormal experience that made you go, wow, this is real. I like this. You know, this is something I can work with.
You know, that didn't happen as far as a positive aspect of it until I was an adult. But the first time I remember being different and having an actual experience that I knew others wouldn't understand was I was very young, maybe 5, 6. I had a waterbed, and that's part, it's part of the story here. So I woke up from this nightmare and I heard it was like a little boy saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry I scared you. Right. So it was like, I'm sorry. And then I felt him sit down on the edge of my bed because the whole bed rippled.
Wow.
And I hung on to that for a long time, not telling anybody, because before I had started to tell my mom that I was hearing footsteps down the hallway, and my parents would say, oh, well, that's just the house settling or it's pipes. And it didn't feel like the energy didn't feel right to me. But when that moment happened, when I woke up, heard I'm sorry, felt the bed ripple, I'm like, I can't make that up. But I've already been told to not talk about this. I don't want to hear about that. Right. And then that gaslighting that parents do unknowingly, they don't mean to do it, but it scares them when they start hearing their children say, hey, I heard something coming down the hallway, or I saw somebody standing in my doorway. So I'd say the first time I said yes, I was comfortable. It wasn't scary for me. I was very young, 5, 6 years old.
Yep.
And after that, I was very choosy about who I shared this information with, even knowing that young, because again, I think I've been like a hypersensitive. I'm empathic. I was always able to read people's feelings behind the like they're putting out a broadcast, but I could always feel there's something not matching what they're saying.
Yep.
So it's just something that's always been within me. So I've been very choosy. Now, as an adult, where I went, ooh, I kind of like this, was my first Reiki class when I went, I've been doing this my whole life. And it's not wrong and it's not bad. And oh my gosh, I can do something really cool with this now. When I first got my level 1, at first I was very, very selfish. I'm like, oh, this is just for me. Like, this feels so good. This is just for me. But spirit has a way, doesn't it? Right? All of a sudden,
Yep.
people, you look so good. What are you doing? Oh, I want some of that too. And it wasn't long before I started to have people wanting sessions. So as an adult, yeah, definitely getting Reiki and having, oh, this is something. This is really something.
So you take people on paranormal tours. So would you
Yeah, I'll
like to
sign it.
tell us about how you work, some of the experiences and how they feel during sort of tours that you do?
So at first, people they assume they're coming on a paranormal investigation. So there's a little bit
Yes.
of education around it to begin with. I've lovingly called these tours haunted field trips.
Yep.
And the places I choose to take people to are public places. Anybody can access them anytime. But it's also about connecting the history to the metaphysics that are happening there, because it's all connected. So, for an example, my first tour was at a place called Frank Slide, which is a major historical town mountain that's in southern Alberta. So Frank Slide involves the falling of part of a mountain into a mining settlement that's at the bottom of Turtle Mountain. Okay. Now, a lot of people, when you look on the internet, there's a lot of information about the whole town was covered, blah, blah, blah. That's already stuff that we demystify as soon as we get there.
Yep.
Okay. And I actually take these people to the base of the slide so we can actually tune in to the site itself without any beepers, without any boopers, because we are our own beeper booper. We are the best antenna to pick up paranormal experiences. So when people first say, oh, I'm actually doing it, they're nervous. They don't believe that they could tap in. Yet every single one of them has a unique experience when I take them through It's a meditation style where I allow them to be a witness and not to connect and attach to the energy, because that's how we get confused and conflicted within the paranormal. We involve our emotions and our filters. So here I said, no, you're just a witness. What are you witnessing? What does this mountain have to say to you? What does this site have to say to you? And everybody gets something a little bit different. So after that meditation portion, all of a sudden the crowd eases. They're excited about learning more. They're not scared anymore because they rarely pick up anything also that is traumatic to the point where it's hard for them to accept it. And this is where we allow ourselves to not see through things emotionally or through those filters. So when they realize, oh, it's not scary, then I take them to another portion. We say, okay, well, why would this place be haunted? Frank Slide, for example, there are seams and seams and seams of coal running up in that mountain. There are major underground water sources there, which talks a lot about telluric fields, you know? So it does feel spooky. It feels spooky. Over 100 years ago, a whole part of a mountain came down and took out part of a town. Just how people talk about that area gives a psychic impression and residual energy onto it. They build it. So we talk about that stuff. I mean, even just down from Frank, since we're, Frank's slide is just a really good example because it's very, there's 3 different sites that we attend that give very different energy at every site. And that's also what I want these people to understand. We could be within a mile of a place and they feel miles apart in energy. So when we go up into the Hillcrest Cemetery, which I love going to cemeteries, I love going to graveyards. There's a lot of demystification that can happen in those sites as well. This particular cemetery involves 187 lives that were lost in the worst mining disaster of Canadian history at the Hillcrest mines, which happened within a decade of Frank Slide. So this whole area just has this trauma pause, but when you go into it, I find these attendees are finding the community that rushed in to help save these people, those who were buried, those wives and other families that had lost their main breadwinner, right, in the mines. Yep. You feel a different sort of connection there, and you can actually, they honor these sites a little bit better instead of being like, oh, I'm so scared to go into that cemetery. Now they're actually really curious and they want to honor the lives that were once there, right? And then we usually finish off the tour with the information center or the museum that's attached to all of this. And with Frank, there's so much validation by people wandering around because their interpretive center is, it's 3 levels of gloriousness. They have old buildings that were once part of the town in there. They've got histories. They've got even the scientific facts about why the mountain fell, why it happened, and even the indigenous and how they warned the settlers, we would never stay there. That's the mountain that moves. What are you guys doing? So through not only education of the historical happenings there on these haunted field trips, we talk about the history. We talk about what's going on with the earth energies here. Are there any ley lines, vortexes? Is there high mineral content? Is there a lot of telluric fields underneath the ground, right? Because there's reasons why we feel this way. So we discuss that. And then we allow this expansion of the psychic senses. I call it ghost hunting from a medium's perspective, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we allow this psychic development to happen in a real world condition, because the one thing I was finding, Anna, is over the last probably 7 years of teaching classes on channeling, Reiki, spiritual development, when you're all in a community center together, everything's amplified, everything is safe, but then these people struggle to do it in an actual on-site place where there's a lot of energy and feels going on. So this is like ghost hunting from a medium's perspective in real world circumstances where you are not in control of everything. And we do it in the daylight. Can you believe it? I don't have to do dead time. We don't have to be in there at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, and these people are having, like, these aren't paranormal investigations, Anna. These are healing experiences that these people are having. And it jacks me up because they're seeing it. They're taking away the Hollywood. And they're like, oh yeah, but that makes sense. Yeah, when you put these 2 things together, when you put the logic and the spiritual together, yeah, it makes sense why people would feel the heebie-jeebies running through the Crow's Nest Pass, right? That's where Frank Slide is, right? Like it makes sense. Or this fall, I'm taking a group of people to the Empress Theatre, which is in Fort Macleod, one of Alberta's establishing towns. This theater is over 100 years old, and it does vaudeville still, it does classes, it does film, it does, so it still has that variety, but the energy soaked into the walls, just like you said, you could repaint it, you could take the seats out, you could take the carpet out, but that building has so many stories to tell. And not once did any of those people who came to that event, did they feel scared at all. They never felt scared. We often heard children laughing. The owner there has such a presence, like I can't even explain it. I remember he comes up to me, he's like, "What are you doing? I've never seen, what are you doing? Can you see me? I can see you." And he's having this conversation with me, and I'm trying to run this group in a meditation, right? And but anything else I've seen in this theater has always been filmed and tell me if you're here, make the beeper go off. So when this presence comes up to me, he's like, "I've never seen it done this way before. What are you doing? Can they see me?" Like there was this curiousness, even in spirit, of saying something different is going on here, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't see anything like this especially in my province. But I was really, I mean, at the end of the day, my intention is to say, let's take the Hollywood out of the paranormal and let's normalize it a little bit. And these people are coming away with way less fear. Some skeptics who have come had said, "Wow, I never really thought about this stuff this way. And you've opened up a whole new world to me. Like I would do this again. I thought I was going to be scared. I thought this, I thought that." And I'm like, "Well, I hope you had a good time." Yeah. So it's been a really cool last 3 years where I was able to start to put those into motion. Because when I first had the intuition, it was 2020. So I had to wait. I had no choice but to wait.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
which is fine. We're doing good now that way. But yeah, so that's what happens on those haunted field trips. And I want people to think about it like a field trip. This is educational. I'm not going to walk you around. So what kind of inspired these, Anna, was I've been on my fair share of ghost walks. I've been on my fair share of ghost tours. And the thing that I find disappointing is how many fallacies they still tell about these places. Just stories that were either made up, that are carried through the collective consciousness for whatever reason, and they just reiterate it. And a lot of these buildings, you don't even get to go inside. So you're taking me on this street tour. I'm not allowed to go inside. And I get to a point where I can't trust half of the stuff they're saying because my own research already disproves half of what some of these ghost tour people are actually saying. And they're trying to keep a collective narrative that needs to change. So that's what I'm hoping to do with haunted field trips, because the collective narrative around the paranormal, it needs to change. Paranormal just means it's not normal. So let's figure out what it really means. That's kind of my point of view around it, right?
That's right. That's why I called my podcast Perfectly Paranormal, because it's perfectly normal. Like my tagline is life is perfectly paranormal because we're all existing together. And I wrote a note with what you were saying. When we do our work with connecting with who is around us, we don't have to prove they're there. Paranormal investigation is all about the proof and proving there are spirits there. They're everywhere. Day, night, afternoon, morning. They don't come out at night time. They are in locations 24/7. If it's for a particular reason or if they're roaming spirits, they come, they go. People say to me, why do I get these feelings coming and going in my house? I said, because spirits are literally roaming the earth. They will wander into your house, have a look at you and go, "Oh, isn't that lovely?" And then they go again.
And they go on. Yeah.
They move around all the time. It's the same with the darker entities that I work with. They're here for different reasons, but they come and go, and they are here all the time. And our like the angelic realm and our realm and the spirit realm, it's all one. It's not separated. It is all one location, like multiple dimensions, all happening at the same time. That's how I try and explain it to people.
Yeah. How I like that analogy. It's happening all the time. I use it. It's a radio band.
Yeah.
You have your stations, and that's where everything is.
Yeah.
There's some people who get really like, and I get it, because Hollywood does a really good job of saying darker entities are really scary. But Hollywood never says, but if you're aligned to the energy, it'll be attracted to you. But if the entity is here, but you're all the way over here on the radio dial, it doesn't match. There's nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to be scared of.
No.
I mean, when people are so worried about whether it's angelic or good or evil, I'm like, try to think contributing and non-contributing, because what you consider evil is subjective compared to somebody else. So is it contributing or non-contributing, and deal with it on that level? Because it's
That's
just
it.
easier. Yeah, it's just easier to be like, okay, it's non-contributing for me. But it's not deciding for everybody what good and evil is, because you can't do that. I've learned that from being in this business. What's good and evil to me is certainly different than the person down the street from me. So,
Well, see, where I get into trouble is that I say a lot of the time is that dark entities, they're not evil. They actually teach us about our shadow selves, about what we need to work on within us. Because when I clear homes, entities are there because of the emotional food, the emotional vibrations, energy, emotions are energy in motion, if that makes sense. So
yep,
wherever people create pools of negative emotions for whatever life traumas they're going through, that pumps out a vibration. That vibration, say it's resentment or loneliness or something, hatred, blame, that attracts the lower vibrational beings that feed off that vibration. So I
that's right.
clear homes by removing all the negative imprints, all the trauma, all the addictions, anything negative that's happened in a home for whatever reason from the previous owners or the past owners, or on the land, what happened to the land before the home was built. And then it's got that energetic spring clean that we talked about earlier. And the entities go, I'm just going to go down the street, down the pub, go down to the parliament, go wherever all the vibrations that they like are being created. And people
Right.
find that challenging. I go, they're not scary. They don't actually care about you. It's what's in the home. And you just happen to sleep in that spot, or brush your
That's right.
teeth in that spot, or sit in that spot. And that's why you feel cold, or you feel a bit sick, or you feel unwell. I like to call it using your person, you're a dowsing tool. This is how because I do a lot of pendulum dowsing, and I say to people, your body is a dowsing tool. Use it when you go out. If you go to the pub and no one sits in that cubicle and you think, I'll go and sit there, and you go over there and go, oh no, I start to feel sick, or my head's spinning, or I just feel
Yeah,
uncomfortable, there's a reason why you're not meant to sit there.
that's
So
right.
honor what your body is telling you. And that is what you're teaching people, is to honor what their physical body is telling them, what their mind and what their chakras and what their energy
Yes.
field is telling them. And that's what these clients, this friend of mine that went to that house where the principal was, she's really
Mm,
new to doing this, but she went, there's something here, there's something in that room. And I can understand why you're feeling rage, because I'm feeling really uncomfortable in this room. Let's do something about it. So that's fascinating.
well, it is like I always tell people, you are just one shift away of not experiencing any of that stuff. It even comes into, I like how you brought up shadow work, and how these entities, they're aligned with that resentment, that addictive energy, whatever we're putting out. And we're creating this agreement with them to live in that stink together. But if you decide right now, I'm going to shift my energy, I'm going to change my mindset, you will never experience that again. When I had an entity come around me quite often when I was between the ages of 7 and about 15. And collectively, we call him the man in the hat, or the hat man. You probably
Yep.
heard of this
Yep.
energy, right? And the last time I had a visit from that energy, which I'm not sure what it is, I know that for me, it created a lot of deep fear. But by then, I was already told to be scared of this stuff.
Yep.
Okay. So there's a lot of belief around that I had to undo. The last time I saw that energy was just before I got Reiki, before I really stepped into managing my own energy, right? And understanding attraction, alignment, and even like I'm Teflon. I don't take on other people's stuff. I learned about that. I haven't seen it since. And I haven't seen anything like that since, unless it's removing it from somebody else's body, a home. Again, when I'm there to deal with business, to make a shift in the energy there and allow more accepting, loving, bright energy, then yeah, like I say, paint your walls. right? That's the
Yep.
only time I see that stuff now, but it doesn't just come looking for me because there's nothing to look for. It can't live in my vibration. And that shadow aspect, I love how it amplifies that. If we could just look at ourselves and say, wow, what kind of rage am I hiding within me? Maybe I need to address that,
Yep.
right?
That's
That's
it.
why our bodies tell us so much. I mean, I loved getting into the studies of the chakras, and it's more than just this surface stuff that's a lot of the energy workers teach. It's way deeper than that. You use that chakra to get you into the organ system, to get you into the nervous system, or whatever system you need to get into that is aligning with discomfort, that is aligning with non-contributing energy or sabotage. And once you can address that, you see it in the body, you see it change. You see it in attitudes. All of a sudden you lose a bunch of weight and you wonder why. And it's like, well, you're no longer carrying around shame. Like, I don't know, right? Like I wish, well, what I'm hoping for a lot in our industry on is just this more of people who think like us.
Yes.
Look
Yes.
beyond what Hollywood is teaching. What is my body telling me? What is this home telling me? And how is it telling me that you're aligned to all of this? Right? Because you're right, it's not good or bad. It's just if it's affecting your life, you need to shift out of it. Shift your perspective, shift your energy. And it's just like that. Like you say, I would be very interested to hear about your client who you dealt with yesterday and to see if they've noticed a difference yet, because this stuff is very quick when we do make the shift and commit to it and commit to it. I mean, there's been houses that I've had to revisit because the folks were so committed to it being haunted that it just kept showing up haunted. And I just said, I can't help you until you can decide to live with ease, grace, and flow, without problems, without fear. Until you choose that, there's nothing I can do.
Because
Yeah.
paranormal drama is a thing. It's just like
Yes.
paranormal addiction is a term that I've kind of coined with my work, is people want the paranormal to frighten them. They want that adrenaline rush. And that's okay for entertainment. That might be a movie. But when you're living
Yeah.
it day in, day out, I find I get a lot of clients who go from healer to healer to healer to healer to tell their story because they may have a mental health condition, or they're lonely, or they're feeling lost, or they like to tell the story, but they don't actually want change. This is one thing I want to say. You see on Instagram and YouTube when people go, oh, my house is haunted, oh, my house is haunted, and they've got 500,000 views. Someone like me will leave a comment going, I would really like to help you. I'm not going to charge you to do this. I want to help you improve the energy of your home so that your kids aren't frightened, so that you're more
Mhm.
comfortable. You never hear from them.
Oh, no, because then it would
Never.
solve the situation. It would solve it. And that you're right. I mean, in it's this junkie attitude,
Yep.
right? And they're getting a perceived payoff, which is usually negative, but it's a perceived payoff. I get to have this story. I'm so victimized by spirit. I mean, some of the stories that swirl into my world are when I clear houses, and this is coming from a healer's side of things, right? I just clear houses and I'm so exhausted after, and things follow me home, and I'm like, oh, so you have no training. Okay. Oh, no, but I'm a natural medium. But if things are following you home, and if you're all drained out, like you should be on top of the world after a house curing. You
Yep.
should feel great after sending spirit back to where it needs to go and where it's most happy. You shouldn't be drained, bringing things home, then you're not trained. And don't get mad at me because you chose not to take the training. Like,
Yep.
why are you suffering? But again, that's also that spiritual junkyism of, oh, I'm a wounded healer.
Yep. Yep.
Well, and they align to a certain clientele too, right? And it's okay. It's okay because I mean, I've learned that you're going to buy into the experience that you're most comfortable with. If you want to go and go to a show where it's horse and pony tricks and somebody's up there saying, who knows somebody with a name that starts with a J? Well, I'd rather go have a high level experience where I'm one-on-one with my spiritualist. I'm trying to see why I'm aligning to these dark entities, or because I don't think that they're evil. Again, they're just showing us more of who we are, right? They're bringing out what we need to shift up and out, right? Or accept more into our lives if we look at angelic. Doesn't matter, just a different end of the pole. I'd rather have that high level experience. because I'm buying and paying for the experience that's going to help me shift and heal. You want a low level, then you're just dabbling, you're not serious about it. And I don't know, I just feel like there's very few of us that are very serious about this work sometimes, Anna, and it feels like we're up against a brick wall sometimes with all of this other showboating, spiritual junkiism, the addiction, the flaunting, the drama. I mean, I don't know if you can relate the same way. I love the work I do. I'm going to do it as long as spirit allows me to. But do you ever feel like sometimes you're running up a hill and the hill's never going to end? And it's like, but I just want to be heard a little bit more. Like, when will people wake up? I mean, I try to have compassion for others, but I do run up into a lot of this. It's hard to watch what's going on in the spiritual industry sometimes. It really is for me.
It is big time, big time. I can relate this to a client experience where a young couple moved into a home, about 100-year-old home. So that just tells me instantly you're going to have spirits, you're going to have dark energies, you're going to have emotional imprints and so forth from the previous clients. That had someone come in, and now I'm not doubting these two perspectives about how people do their work. They had someone come in and do some saging and drumming and charge them $120 to clear the home. Didn't do anything. Nothing shifted. They then had another lady come in who was recommended to them. She sat in the middle of their lounge room surrounded by crystals for half an hour and chanted, and then went, "Your house is now clear of all paranormal evil entities that have been haunting you." All that did was peeve off the energy beings that were in the home. So then they come to me. Someone else recommended to me. So instantly they were skeptical. They weren't going to trust me. They're like, "You're just going to charge us money and then nothing's going to happen." I went, "Well, just listen to how I work and we'll just see where we go with this." He was so happy with the work that I did afterwards that he left me a testimonial. He actually wanted to pay me extra. He was over the moon that he'd found someone authentic. But I just keep pumping out my information that upstairs, or management as I call them, is saying, "Right, you need to educate people about this." Talking about dark entities as teachers. That was one of my episodes. And people have come back to me and gone, "Oh, no, you took that down the wrong track." And I'm going, "No, actually, it is real life, everyday information. Please do with it what you will, but you plant the seed in people's minds, even if they're skeptical."
That was the hardest. I love how you mentioned that. The management upstairs keeps telling me what to put out and I just do it. And in the beginning, especially when I pivoted more into, well, let's talk about what makes you feel uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
I've lived it my whole life. I mean, let's talk about it. I had a hard time being like, "Well, you're telling me to put this out, but I'm scared," right? Because not only the area I live in, the group of healers I learned and teached with, I've been told that I scare people almost my whole life, that I'm like, "But are you sure? You want me to talk about that?" But like, "Yeah, because you know that. You know
Yes.
that. So go talk about that." So it's taken me a little bit, but that's how the dark side of light work came to be.
Yes.
It's like I started to challenge the cases that were out there. I started to challenge the healers that we've put on pedestals for no good reason, right? And to break it down, people got a little upset by some of those episodes. "Well, I thought you loved the Warrens." Yeah, but the more I found out about them, the less I put them on pedestals. They were just real people too. So how about that? Right? And they followed a certain line that I felt is detrimental in paranormal research now, that everybody learns from. And I mean, that's okay. That's my opinion. I don't care if you feel that way, but nobody ever talks about them that way. But this is my experience. I know how to do all this stuff too. I don't need the showmanship. I don't need newspapers showing up. I don't need movies, right? And the Warrens have been like that the whole time, which is fine. That's their process of putting the education out there. And it took a little while for me to accept this is my process. And that's just using Warrens as an example. I mean, when we start to look at even haunted buildings, I'm like, if they were really haunted and they really wanted them to not be haunted, why are they not doing anything about it? Well, hotels make a lot of money when they're haunted, right? Which really, if they were really haunted, they wouldn't make a lot of money. And that's what I think people don't understand. If they were truly, truly haunted, everything else becomes affected by that. right? Like, I love how some people are like, but I want to live with the ghost in my house. I'm like, but that directly affects your energy. You don't want to live with the dead. It's not natural. So let's find them a place where they can go without attachment, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I had a client once who was an elderly man. He'd moved into a new home. The lady who had lived in the home previously had passed away in the home, and the family hadn't got round to fully clearing the house out, and they put all of her possessions in the back room and locked it.
Ooh.
So he moved into the house. She was still
Yeah.
there. She was upset because no one had dealt with her precious items. Her Singer sewing machine was her most favourite item. He was lonely and he knew something was in the house, and he went, look, you can stay, you can stay. And that was the worst thing that he did, because she was in the kitchen with him, in the shower with him, in the bedroom with him, when he was getting dressed, when he went to the pub.
Mhm.
She stuck to him like glue because she was a little bit lonely, he was a little bit lonely, he was tired and exhausted and he couldn't cope anymore.
Yeah.
We ended up sorting it out, and she was happy once all her possessions were divided amongst the family and the sewing machine went to the daughter that wanted it. She was very upset that she'd been disrespected and everything had just been shoved aside to get the money for selling the house. But that man lived the experience of living with a spirit in his house, not attached to him, not in his energy field, but
Yeah. But
attached to
still
him
that
like a
hanger on that
groupie. Yeah, like
hitchhiker.
in
Yeah.
bed, in the shower, on the couch, standing next to him when he's making toast of a morning. And he's like, my body, he was tired, he was drained, he wasn't sleeping properly, he felt uncomfortable, he knew something was there, he didn't quite know who it was. It wasn't scary, but it was annoying. So people who say, oh, spirits, oh, you can please stay in my house, how do you know they're spirits too? That's the other
Yes.
question.
Yes, because if you don't have the education or the experience to check out the whole broadcast, is the way I look at it. You got to look at everything coming through. There could be a
Mm,
hidden agenda. It could be wrapped in light. You don't know. And as soon as you give that permission, oh my goodness, you have set up a contract that is never ending. And that's the biggest problem. We don't want to live with that energy because, like you said, look how your client slowly declines. Yeah, it's not a
yes.
vibrational match for our energy.
No.
So it'd be like living by windmills, as far as I'm concerned. That's how it'd be for me if there's a lot of spirit around, but I'm hypersensitive. So I always explain that to people. You don't want to sleep right beside your electric panel downstairs. That's why it's downstairs, right? So that's like a spirit. It's the same disruption. And just that permission, you don't know what else is even bound to them. You don't know if they've even got something bound to them. So you could be saying yes on so many levels. Oh my good. Like, no, I say never give permission. I say, get out. I'm of the living. Bye-bye. Back to whence you came. I'm
Yep.
very much an advocate of don't live with energy that's in disharmony, because you will eventually suffer from it physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, all of that. Whether it's all of it or some of it, get into harmony, man. It's way, way more fun when you're in harmony. Because again,
That's
it's like,
it.
do you like to tell the story that I have a friendly ghost in my house? Is that also part of the payoff? Right. So I just, yeah, and people are like, oh yeah, I totally. I'm like, well, you should call somebody who's willing to clear that for you and educate you. Like, period.
Yep. Yep.
Period.
Wonderful. It's been so wonderful speaking with you today. Would you like to share with everyone about your social media, about how they can contact you, about your haunted field trips?
Well, I'm not the best on social media, but I have Facebook and I do have Instagram. Those are my two favorite to play on, and I think they're really age appropriate for me. So I can't get onto the TikTok. I tried. It's above me. So I'm okay with that. So you can find me at either the Dark Side of Light Work with Wynne Thornley, or Wynne Thornley Esoteric Guide. I like to say I more guide people towards themselves opposed to teach them, right? I'm not a Reiki master. I'm mastering Reiki. I'm just all about, that's where you'll find that type of stuff. The lighter stuff on the Esoteric Guide, and the darker, more inky stuff on the Dark Side of Light Work. If you want to find me in one area where everything is there, my blog, event details, all that stuff, I just set up a new website. It's www.wynnethornley.com. Super easy. You'll be able to find some course journals that I have there that help you manage your energy and create a routine out of it, because I don't care if you're a ghost hunter, a medium, or what, learn how to manage your energy. You will change your life. You will change. It then becomes a choice. It's not something you have to deal with. It's a choice. You find information about, I love mentorship. I work really well in teaching and mentorship. So I have mentorship opening up this fall and some Reiki classes, which are all done online. I live in a super small rural community. So everything I do is online because I reach out way past it. I work with people all over the world and countries. So that's how you can find me. If you want to learn more, I'm all about consultations. We might not jive together. We might be like two peas in a pod. So I don't ever want people to commit to anything without actually, let's have a chat. Let's see if we mix and if this is the experience you're looking for. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm so glad to have been on your podcast today, Anna. I've been listening to you for a while too. So it's kind of like fangirling a little bit. I've controlled a little bit during the interview, but I'm fangirling a little bit too.
But it's so nice to meet someone that we have a similar approach and that we can
Yes.
see beyond what society wants people to see, with the brainwashing that goes on. And we just keep educating. I'm just going to keep working and keep making a podcast, probably till the day I die. I plan on being here till I'm 96, so I've got another 40 odd
Perfect.
years. So I'm going to be drumming it into people and then leave it on YouTube for the rest of eternity so people can find it once I'm not here. But yeah, we just do it. We just keep educating, putting out that real perspective about the paranormal. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna.